Today we're welcoming Anthony Scarpone-Lambert, who is the co-founder and CEO of ADNI, the first all-in-one app for healthcare workers. A former Broadway performer and graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, Anthony is the first nurse to receive the prestigious Penn President's Innovation Prize. Under his leadership, ADNI has raised $1.7 million and brought its vision to life. ADNI is the first nurse-led company to be backed by Combinator and has served nearly 100,000 healthcare workers through its innovative platform. Additionally, Anthony's nursing content has garnered over 10 million views on social media, encouraging nurses to innovate and support one another. Follow Anthony on TikTok and Instagram at NurseFounder. You can see more of Anthony's awards and recent press at anthonyscarcaponelambert.com. Well, welcome, Anthony, to the Healthcare Rule Breaker Studio. We're so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
My name's Alyssa. I know you and I have had a couple of conversations, both business related, personal and professional. So I'm so excited to have you here in the studio with us. And I'll let Dr. Crystal Lawson jump us off.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here today. I learned about ADNI a few years ago. Actually, you had a different name at the time. And so I'm really excited for you to share the story. We just want to elevate others up and talk about the different things that are happening out there. So you would share your story with us. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for having me. I'm so excited. I literally could talk about nursing, innovation, and just all the things that healthcare workers can do beyond the bedside. I could talk about it literally all day. So I'm really honored to be on the podcast and love the conversations you guys are having. I'm Anthony. I can give a quick crash course on kind of my career and how I got to where I am today. I, as was mentioned, have a pretty unconventional background before nursing. Actually grew up performing on Broadway. And besides it being like a pretty random fun fact, I think that I always love to share that part of my story just because I think, performing on Broadway taught me so many skills that I've leveraged in my nursing career, in my entrepreneurship founder career, because, when you are performing on Broadway, you kind of have that the show must go on mentality. You're always kind of keeping on your feet, having to kind of sell a story. And I think that so much of the empathy in nursing and also the kind of salesmanship that, is involved in entrepreneurship kind of takes a lot of skills from that previous part of my life. But ultimately, when my career in theater ended, I decided that, I really wanted to pursue a career where I thought I could have like a big impact. I always was very interested in like the human body and healthcare. I thought maybe I wanted to go into medicine. I honestly don't think I was super sure in high school, but I found nursing pretty serendipitously through searching online. And in high school, I actually saw that there was a lot of nurses who were hospital CEOs, CEOs of different tech startups like NurseGrid, and kind of seeing those like nursing leaders out there. It really inspired me and made me kind of realize like, wow, like the nursing degree is actually super versatile. Like there's all of these leaders that are going out there and, building companies, leading the healthcare system. So how cool would it be to go to nursing school and really be able to start like in the front line and really see healthcare up front and close. So decided to go into nursing, studied nursing at the University of Pennsylvania. And I was really fortunate to go to a nursing school that really promoted students to explore outside of the nursing program. And I think that's such an important insight is, just because you're studying nursing, it doesn't mean you can't take a class in the business school, take an engineering class, go participate in, different parts of campus. And I think I was really inspired to do that just with how many opportunities there were to explore. So I started getting very involved in like the innovation part of campus. Penn had like a lot of entrepreneurship, different awards you could win and grants and hackathons. And I really just started getting involved and showing up. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about startups or innovation or design thinking, like all of these like buzzwords I just kind of heard about, but I started showing up and, I really started just learning how all of these things work. through that journey and through all of those different iterations, I worked on a lot of different ideas and projects. I was coming up with just a bunch of different problems I was seeing both in nursing school, but then also just like talking to different people in the community. And I was fortunate to attend actually a nurse-specific hackathon in 2019, which is actually where I met my co-founder, Jennifer, and really was introduced for the first time, like on a broad scale, to like nurse-led innovation. And there, I was able to connect with my co-founder, Jennifer, and we were able to really become inspired to say like, hey, like we both have this shared passion for nursing, for problem solving, for wanting to build really innovative tools and resources for our profession. Like, could we, together partner to build something, really exciting for the nursing community? So out of that hackathon, we decided to partner up and start a company. And that was a roller coaster and scary to take the leap. And I think took a lot of trial and error just because, I don't know, like there's like starting a company. It's like, what does that even mean? I feel like you don't learn that in nursing school. But the original kind of, I guess, overarching theme that we felt was, hey, like we really want to build a company that designs innovative tools and resources for our profession. And we started as I graduated nursing school. We started basically with a single Trojan horse product, which was solving a specific pain point that we'd both experienced working clinically when our patient's sleeping. You have to go into your patient's room. If you ever worked night shift, day shift, you probably can know this problem. And when your patient's sleeping, you have to creep into your patient's room, turn on these bright overhead room lights that typically wake the patient up. Our solution was a wearable light that helps frontline healthcare workers basically be able to illuminate their workspace in a more non-disruptive way. So long story short, we were able to bring that product to market. We won some awards to help us fund it. The product ended up going viral when we launched on social media, and we were able to propel our business forward and end up going eventually full-time with the business, and have now since, evolved in many ways through building, technology to help support the frontline healthcare workforce. So it's been a wild ride, and that is kind of the summary.
Okay, so I just want to say, number one, amazing story. Number two, I have like so many questions, but I'm going to limit myself to 3. And I had to like make a note, like, don't ask this. Okay. So the first thing that you said that was like light bulb on for me was other classes. So in nursing school, you took the opportunity to take classes, or were able to take classes really in other colleges, like the College of Engineering, like the College of Business. Because I will say, I went to the University of Kentucky, great school, got a great education. I am now an entrepreneur, but again, not something that was really infused in our undergraduate program, which is a trend across the country. And so I just want to hear like a little bit more about that and how you were able to get that opportunity, or how you decided like what other courses you were going to take. How'd you infuse that in your education? Because I'm blown away.
I think it's so important. I feel like looking back, I think that's really one thing that empowered me to realize, wow, like there's so many things I can do. Like I'm not just limited to working at the bedside my whole career. Obviously, that is always such an incredible path forward. But I think that it helped me realize, like, when I was bringing my nursing perspective into different settings where there wasn't a nurse and there wasn't someone who was working in the hospital, like, it really was such a powerful perspective to have at the table. And I think that was really the light bulb moment for me to say, like, oh, I definitely need to like be bringing the nursing perspective into different spaces, because there was one specific class I took, which was like a healthcare medical device class. It was like kind of teaching you how to go through the FDA clearance process for bringing a medical device to market. And, this is a classroom of primarily, business background folks, right? Like people who'd worked in consulting, who'd worked in investment banking, who'd worked in venture capital. There was no clinicians, like there was no healthcare workers. And although I didn't have like years of experience at that point, I think even just being able to bring in that voice was so powerful. And made me realize like, wow, like there needs to be more clinicians at these tables. So yeah, I honestly just signed up for classes that I thought were interesting. I signed up for like a medical device class, a healthcare entrepreneurship class, a design thinking class. And then, just started kind of showing up in different spaces on campus. And I won't lie, it was kind of scary at first to apply to some of these like entrepreneurship grants when there'd never been a nursing student to even apply before. But I think just believing in yourself and like taking the leap and realizing the perspectives you're gaining as a nurse, as a healthcare worker, are so valuable to innovation into different industries to be able to hear that perspective.
Okay, so you kind of answered one of kind of a mix of my other two questions, so I'm going to combine it into one. So you had mentioned previously that you didn't know what you didn't know, but you kind of took the leap forward anyway. So what is it like if you were going to talk to someone about how to get that courage, like somebody who's on the fence about, whether they're making the leap from, part-time to full-time in their business, or they're making the leap of decision to even try to capitalize on an idea that they have in their mind. Because I'll tell you, you mentioned like, oh, you had all these ideas flowing. I'm the same way. Like, I feel like I have all these wild ideas. And honestly, I went through the AONL fellowship with Crystal, and Dan Weberg came to talk about one of the things. And I was like, oh, maybe my ideas aren't so wild. Like maybe they're like things that I might actually be able to do. And so just hearing you say that, I just wanted to explore a little bit more, like what was it like for you to kind of take that burst of courage and take those steps?
It's scary, for sure. It is so scary. And I think that one thing you realize after you start, building your company, going into entrepreneurship is, you kind of look up to all these other people that are doing it. And you're like, oh my gosh, they must know everything. Like, how did they learn all this stuff? Like, how did they do it? But then once you get to that point, you realize like everyone's just kind of making it up as we go, right? Like when you're building something that doesn't exist, there's no rule book, right? Like, yes, you can read entrepreneurship books. There's awesome courses online. There's so many resources to help support you and help you with your thought process and, starting the LLC or the C Corp or, some of these like logistics. But ultimately, you just kind of have to figure it out, and you kind of just have to fail and like keep failing until you get it right. And then you fail more and then you get it right again. So I think just really accepting the fact that like there is no rule book. No one knows all the answers. And you kind of just have to accept the fact that you're going to make mistakes and just start. So I think that's always my number one advice is like, just start. If you have an idea, you don't know where to start, go on Google, go on YouTube, go on LinkedIn, start messaging people, start having conversations, start joining community spaces in your community. There's entrepreneurship centers, there's different accelerators you can join. Like really just start putting yourself out there. And I think that's like the best way to get the momentum moving forward.
Gosh, you nail it. The courage is the hardest part. It's not for the faint of heart or those that are not risk takers, for sure. You said a couple of things. I have first a comment and then a question. First of all, I want to leadership development is my passion. And you talked about your theater background, and I cannot convey enough the importance of that skill set. I love to do improv and leadership development courses because it's it's okay if you fail, keep moving forward, always thinking on your feet. No one has it all figured out. That's true in everything. So I love that. And when I was hiring people, I loved to choose people that had waited tables. I loved to hire people that had been on sports teams. And I learned quickly that theater backgrounds also had real value to the team. So I love that. It takes all of us. So I have kind of a hard question. Or you may ruffle some feathers out there as we're listening to you. I talk to leaders nonstop all across this country, and we want people to stay at the bedside. We need people at the bedside, right? And so there's this, but look, none of us are. And look at what we're doing for the profession. We're making a difference. So how do we change the view that, this person wasn't a clinician very long? Because I do take great value in the work that I do. I come in and do leadership development, and sometimes I've followed behind consultants that have never walked in their shoes. And so you're wanting to connect to that audience in a way of, I understand you and your challenges, and not from 15 years ago. I know what you're living today because I want to be relevant. But changing that view that, hey, I have gained the skills as a nurse, which serves you well in anything you do in life. And what you're doing, whether it was the night light, what was it called? I can't
The
remember.
Lumify light. The
Lumify
Lumify.
light. It was so cool. And I got to see the next iteration of it too when it came out. Jennifer is just golden.
Truly.
But that thing, because you had walked in those shoes, you understood it, and you are understanding the challenge that they live through and what they need. How do we change that view that it's okay to not stay at the bedside, and we need people that do that?
Yeah. Such a good question. Such a good question. And, I think I always come back to the empowerment that we have as nurses. I think for so long, our profession has been put into this little box of like, oh, you're just a nurse. Like, you're just working at the bedside, like, just whatever, like all the kind of stigmas that have existed for so long. I think when I say that nurses can do anything, beyond the bedside, at the bedside, I think it's not necessarily saying, oh, every nurse needs to like have a job outside of the hospital. I think it's more of a mindset, right? It's more of a mindset and a perspective that like nurses are capable and have the skills necessary to do really whatever they're passionate about, to whether it's going into law, whether it's going into academia, whether it's staying at the hospital and becoming a leader, or maybe it's becoming a nurse practitioner, or maybe it's just working as a registered nurse. Like, all are incredible paths. And I don't think there's one like that's better than the other. It's really just about a mindset of nurses are capable of whatever we put our minds to. And we have such a diverse skill set that is applicable to so many different like industries. And I think that's really empowering, right? Because I think sometimes when you do feel stuck in your career, you feel like you don't have career advancement opportunities, or you feel like, even when we have prospective students looking at nursing, I think if we are just putting nurses in a box, we're doing our profession a disservice. And there's so many things you can do as a nurse. So I think really thinking about it more as a mindset rather than like everyone needs to like leave the bedside to do something else. I think that's really where the power comes in, because we're really empowering our profession to realize just how incredible our skills and perspective are.
I love the way that you stated that, because it's not about getting out. We all have various strengths. And like you talked about sitting in that class, a medical device, and there were no clinicians.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. And so I think it's a wonderful thing that we promote what our profession can do and how we can help our communities, and stop boxing it into, well, you have to be a nurse for this amount of time before you can move into this, or we can all change the world for the better, and rise out of that mindset. And I'm going to share one more thing that I think is really cool. I was listening to a podcast or read something where Lululemon, like them or don't, it's nothing about their company, but they have an ambassador wall, and it's all people that have worked there before. They no longer work there, but they are still out there promoting their brand, and they have their faces on their wall, and they're like, this person started here and look how they're changing the world. Wow. And so if we viewed it as, hey, Alyssa, you went to the University of Kentucky, and Crystal, you went to the University of Tennessee, and you were at what, Penn or Penn State? I don't want to mess that up. UPenn. And look at the people that are out there changing the world versus, oh, we didn't keep them at the bedside as a failure.
Right.
Thank 100%. You for answering that.
Yeah. And I wanted to also draw upon a statistic that was recently shared about a year ago, which found that 50% of nurses have a side hustle or a plan in the future to start a side hustle. And I think that that's really empowering too, right? Like, even as you're at the bedside, I think there's so many opportunities to still be able to find problems, build solutions. Like, you can still be building and solving problems or having side passions like beyond the bedside. And I think that's how, probably a lot of our journey started too, and like pursuing leadership and pursuing our company. I think was said before, like, I think a lot of these companies start as like a passion project, right? So I think it's really just about sometimes when you work bedside and you are, so tired and dealing with so much, being able to have something outside of the hospital that gets you excited and gets you inspired, I think is really, really empowering. And I think we often just don't give ourselves the credit that nurses are literally just doing so many awesome things and solving so many big problems. So I think just wanted to point that point out too.
I'm so glad you did, because that's why we are doing this. We want to highlight the people that are doing it. And if you love the bedside, you're keeping yourself in there to know what are the realities and problems you can solve.
Yes.
I'm so much more passionate to go in and do that work because I have this other passion.
Yeah.
So you nailed it.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think it's good to point that out, because there are there are plenty of companies that are looking for nurses who have, years of experience in a specific specialty or area or discipline, or even a, certain demographic. And they're looking to capitalize on that knowledge and how you can, provide that to further impact patient care or further impact the health system. So I think there's just so many ways that nurses can use their, their knowledge. I do think, if you are, people are approached to like share their information as far as from being a nurse. And I think there is a big stigma that nurses provide that information for free. So I do think that it's okay to, like, Crystal and I were talking about this, like, you've spent your lifetime building this breadth of knowledge. You don't have to give it away for free. Like, even though it will, provide some kind of positive impact, it doesn't always have to be just given away. Like, it's something that you can say, like, oh yeah, I've built myself up and I have, 30 years of, cath lab experience, and you want to tap into it, I'll sell it to you. So I think there are opportunities for nurses to, really understand how they can, capitalize on that clinical knowledge that they've amassed as well. So I think it's great to hear people talk about, we do want them to stay at the bedside, but we also want them to know, like, hey, there are ways that you can use the knowledge that you've amassed to further support the big picture of healthcare. So I just want to share
that.
Imagine that if we were pushing for the nurses to not just come to work and do their shifts, please do that.
Yeah.
And you could change the game and improve the culture where it makes coming to work a lot more enjoyable. And I have joy because my voice is heard in these big tech companies that are making decisions to improve my life, which may or may not happen without their voice.
Yeah.
I love this.
I 100% agree. And just to contextualize this, to show it's actually happening, on ADNI's platform, we have over 50 businesses founded by nurses that list different resources, sell coaching, sell educational information. And many of these nurses still work at the bedside. They still pick up shifts. Some of them are nurse practitioners that still see patients every single day. And now they have this outlet outside of the bedside to really pursue their innovative thinking and, leverage the nursing process in a unique way, which is, by the way, the nursing process is literally the same as entrepreneurship. ADPI, it's like assess, diagnose, plan, implement, evaluate, literally the same process that you do as an entrepreneur. So it's happening, and it's really exciting to see how just all the cool solutions that nurses are creating and seeing their voices and brand come forward is really inspiring.
I love to see this happening in our profession, because if you look at other models, if you look at physicians, there's no rules about you can't go out here and speak and do this and do that. Nursing is the same. We are a profession, not a commodity, not a clock in, clock out. We can change the world.
Yeah. And we have so much knowledge to give too. Like, as you guys mentioned, I love the point you made. So it's an exciting time. And I think year over year, you see more excitement about it, even on TikTok, where I'm always posting content about this. It feels like the number of comments are increasing, the number of people understanding it and feeling really empowered to join the conversation. It feels like year over year, it's really increased.
That's awesome. Okay, Anthony. So we're getting to the signature healthcare rule breakers question, and we want to know, if you could break one rule in healthcare, what's it going to be?
Okay, well, I don't know if this is necessarily a rule, but it kind of is, because budgets are a rule of sorts of what you can spend money on. I think that's something that has truly boggled my mind for years is the fact that healthcare workers who are coming to the hospital to care for patients are paying for their parking at the hospital. And I know that this is super specific and like literally there's like 50 problems that I could share that I want broken. But I want to highlight this one specifically because I think it really amplifies a bigger challenge or issue going on in healthcare. Um, the fact that, you know, these healthcare workers, essential workers, are coming to work and having to pay $20 a day to park to go to work. It just shows how backwards the system is. And I think it really showcases a lot of issues with how we've thought about the budgets of especially frontline healthcare workers and the fact that they are so often viewed like an expense for the employer rather than a revenue generator. And I just truly cannot, it really boils my blood to see these models in place because it's ultimately negatively impacting patient care, right? Like it's all downstreaming effect to the patient, right? When healthcare workers are showing up to work already feeling frustrated, feeling unsupported, maybe there's now a barrier to even show up to work on time or to pick up a certain shift. You know, every study shows when the frontline healthcare workforce is unsupported and not, you know, feeling empowered and happy and supported at work, patient health outcomes suffer and the financial well-being of the organization suffers. So I really, really think we need to start changing how we think about budgets for the frontline healthcare workforce and focusing less on just recruiting, focusing more on how we can better optimize and retain the current staff that is at the hospital. I think that starts with building better cultures. And a lot of that, I think, comes back to the budgets that are in place to be able to support the frontline healthcare workforce. And those budgets are ultimately determined by the fact that the frontline healthcare workforce is sadly really viewed as an expense. I think that really is so overdue for a change.
Man, you nailed it.
Yep.
And interesting you said the parking to tie it all together, because I think if an operator hears this podcast, and I hope you do, they're going to hear, what in the world? Like, what is $10 or $20? And I think they think, oh, nurses are making good money. They don't understand that $10 can make a difference in being able to pay bills. And that's just the reality of frontline right now. And it's such a symptom of a much bigger problem. So thank you for highlighting that. It's very real.
66% of nurses in America are living paycheck to paycheck. 66%. That is extremely alarming. And one of my TikToks actually just went viral talking about this exact issue, and the comments are staggering. There were CNAs in the captions talking about the fact that they wanted to go back to school to be a registered nurse, but they couldn't afford it because nursing school is also expensive. They didn't want to take out more loans just to go work as a nurse and also not, you know, make a ton of more money or still have to deal with a lot of the same challenges. So I think, you know, it's been really interesting to see the perspectives out there. And I know it's such a complex issue. Like I know that, you know, hospitals are suffering, they're dealing with a lot of financial burdens. But I think it's an important conversation to have and to think about, you know, how it could change in the future.
I completely agree. I think we always have to put finances at the top of the forefront, especially when you're dealing with people who, you know, need the resources that they have and access to any potential additional financial means that you can provide. So I completely agree. You know, if there's opportunity there, we hope that maybe this will spark a little change or at least a little conversation when it comes to budget cycles, as they're going to be upon us in the next quarter. So I think you have to always highlight finances. Well, Anthony, it was wonderful to have you with us today and to have this conversation. And we're so grateful for the gift of your time. And we're so happy to welcome you to the Rule Breakers Club. So thank you for joining us. Any last words, any last things that you might want to share?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think any healthcare workers, leaders listening out there, I think we all have a part to play in empowering each other and reminding each other that, you know, we're really capable of making healthcare better tomorrow for our workforce and also for our patients. So just really grateful for the opportunity to be able to help amplify that message.
Okay, where can people find you if they want to get in contact?
All my social media accounts are Nurse Founders. That's where I talk a lot about, a lot of similar topics we discussed today. And then my company is just ADNI.co, ADNI.co, and you can definitely check out our platform.
Very cool. Thank you. It was a pleasure to get to speak with you today.
Thank you both.